Thank you, Mr. Sood. Thank you, Mr. Sangal, for sharing with us the latest M&RE specification. I feel proud because many of the specifications that you have shared, we have been implementing the Lighting a Billion Lives program using similar type of specification, which I would like to highlight here through my presentation and share our experiences on how this lighting solutions have been performing in the field and how we can scale up the project or scale up a lighting program, which incidentally will also benefit the LED industry, because we are also promoting the LED lamps, as Dr. Pachuri rightly said during his address here. So my presentation is on driving social transformation through off-grid solar LED solution. We already know about Lighting a Billion Lives, so I'm not going to touch upon that. But what we are doing, basically we started this program in 2008 with the shared vision and commitment to serve the rural areas who do not have access to clean lighting or access to lighting itself, where we know that electricity services are there in almost 95% of the Indian villages, but unfortunately only those villages which have electricity also do not get the electricity services, because electrons don't flow in the electrical wires because of the shortfall in the generation for whatever reason it may be. So we started the program with the intention of having a 4P model. We call it People Public Private Partnership model, which incidentally is also related to the people, profit and planet, the three domains of 3P. So what we do is that is put up solar charging stations. We started with CFL based charging stations for the first year in 2008, but we gradually shifted to LED based, and we started to do our own research. My colleague Parmita is here, who can throw more light on the type of research that we have undertaken in converting the CFL lanterns. So we actually are very thankful to the industry also, who patiently worked with us. Some of the companies like Regnant Group and others patiently worked with us to convert the CFL lamps into LEDs. At that point of time in 2008, not many LED lamps were available in the market, so we worked with the manufacturers to come out with new version of LED lamps using trial and error method on what should be the LED output from light output from these lamps, what type of LED we should choose, what type of battery specification we should choose for a particular type of LED. All these things, our research lab led by Dr. Mohanty, we did all those trial and error to come out with certain specification, and using that specification we went to the field, keeping our fingers crossed that whether these lamps will really perform in the field or not. And we are very happy to share that these lamps really performed well in the field. And I feel really proud today to see that the ministry specifications are also in line or similar to the specifications that we had developed at that time. So that's I would say a recognition of the program directly or indirectly from the ministry side. And of course the ministry has also been supporting us through their providing a subsidy under their off-grid solar lighting program. So what we do is that we put up charging station in the villages, which not only provides reliable and adequate illumination. There was a debate that whether we should go for 1 watt LED or we should go for 2 watt LED. We decided that we should go for a higher version of LED, because the illumination should be sufficient enough for a person to read and write or to do household activities. You have lamps in the field, in the market, which are of low power LEDs also, but we took a conscious decision to go for little high power LEDs to have a better illumination, so that it's not just changing from candle to LED, but also giving better illumination to the community. We create these enterprises are run by local entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs. We call them village energy entrepreneurs, and it also helps them to generate their livelihood through this means. And we equip the local human resources with the required technical and managerial skills to run those solar charging stations, and it also empowers the rural community. Going ahead, we also tried out with a new concept called solar DC microgrid in some of the villages, where the people were reluctant to or were finding it difficult to come to the charging stations to take the lanterns on rent, because every evening they have to come and take the lantern, and next day morning they have to come and deposit the lanterns for charging. So some people were not finding it easy to come every day. So we felt that wherever the houses are very densely populated, then we can connect all the households through fixed LED lamps and through a DC distribution wiring over a short distance, so that the losses are not high. And that model also we are implementing in many of the states where the population is very dense, like UP, Bihar and MP and other places. So where in some places we are implementing charging station, in some places we are implementing the DC microgrid. Based on that, now the LABL as a national presence is almost 22 states, more than 1 million lives have been impacted in India, and also we are doing it in some other countries outside India, also in African countries. So these are some of the lantern usage where people are doing a lot of, whether it is for education, whether it is for income generation activities, whether it is for livelihood, whether it is for health, they're using these lanterns. To keep the lanterns and these DC grids in proper shape, we also regularly conduct a lot of technical training for the technicians who are involved in this entire exercise. So we tie up with local level NGOs who helps us in selecting the villages and local level operators and technicians. And in the process, we not only set up these charging stations and DC microgrid, but also tries to build the capacity of the local NGO. So going ahead, the NGO can itself set up more charging stations in those areas. So it's try to make it try to promote the program, not just led by TERI, but try to see that it is not just TERI is leading it, but also TERI is sharing its knowledge with a huge number of grassroots level NGOs who can also take the program to a new heights. So what does we do? The key features of the program are that we give a huge thrust on the quality products, and that is something that we have been working since the beginning of this program. Whether it is the technical quality of the LEDs, the lumen degradation. We have a lab, and after my presentation I will request Parmita to share some about the activities that we are carrying out in the solar lab, which was incidentally developed as part of the program. Now it has graduated to become an independent lab where the LED lights and other products can be tested. So we have developed customized delivery models, do a lot of user sensitization, because it's not that you give the product to the user and they are going to use it in a proper way. You also need to create awareness of the user that how to use the LED lights, how many hours they should use it, whether they should not do an overdraw of the battery, they should charge it properly. So all this user sensitization is carried out, and most importantly create a local service network for providing after sales service. We have been continuously innovating at LABL, as I have been saying, in technical improvements in solar lanterns design with reputed technology partners, seeing a range of products to see, and a range of combination of the lights, batteries and the printed circuit boards to see which combination works best. We work very closely with most of the technology partners, many of them are here, and we try to see that how our knowledge, based on the combined knowledge of TERI and our technology partners, how we can develop a better product to serve the society. We have also diversified, as I said, in addition to the solar microgrid, we have also diversified to LED based mobile charging facility. You can see the pictures on the right hand corner. Solar home lighting system, LED based solar home lighting systems, where we have a 2 watt LED, 2 into 2 watt LED, 12 ampere hour battery, which is flooded lead acid type, in some cases also gel type, and these are being implemented in many of the villages where the community is willing to pay some amount to buy this product. So we subsidize a part of it through our fund raised from under corporate social responsibility, and balance they pay for it, and that type of product is also being implemented along with a mobile charging facility which is inbuilt into the solar home lighting system. We are now going ahead and has been experimenting with a new product which is called an integrated domestic energy product, where the home lighting system is being integrated with a product with a cook stove, where the cook stove is a small fan. It is run on a forced draft technology. So since we have a fan and the fan needs some power to run the fan, so the same charge controller and battery is not only powering the fan for the cook stove, but also providing energy for the LED lights to provide illumination to the household. So it's an integrated product which we are trying to promote not only in India but also in African countries. We have successfully implemented it in some places, but we are still awaiting the results from the field on how actually it works, so that we can optimize the design and optimize the technical specification for this particular product also. So while we have been promoting a lot of basic lighting facilities in many of the villages, we have also started to promote to see how we can also integrate productive enterprise with the lighting, where the demand for lighting, where the demand for productive enterprise is there in villages where we have already implemented lighting products. So we have developed a model called solar multi-utility, which is basically is located near the energy utilization points in a village to provide electricity services to the community's needs. And this not only just provide lighting, but it can have a multiple livelihood-based application like grinding, honey skimming, bamboo splitting and other things, where the community can come together and do all those applications in a centralized plate, and at the same time they can get the lighting either from a solar charging station or from a DC grid or from a small AC mini grid, so that they have both the basic illumination facility and also the productive facility. And the entire thing is done in a little smart way, so that the technology that we are disseminating can work in a more smart way, instead of just putting up a technology and dumping the thing. So we also try to see how we can bring in little bit of smartness into the entire thing. But while the smartness is there, we also have to see that how the entire thing can also be made cost effective. So we try to see both the things. This is a solar multi-utility where you can see that a lot of applications are there which are written there and which runs from this particular solar multi-utility center. So while we have been implementing this program over the last 5 years or so, we have been facing a lot of challenges, and based on those challenges we have also tried to address those challenges in our own way, and also tying up with MNRE, with other stakeholders, with the government, with the private sector. I would like to highlight some of the challenges and some of the solutions which we have been trying to do and which can be done to scale up the entire program. So in case of technology, one of the key challenges that we had initially faced is the untested products. We see a lot of products coming from other countries which are actually spoiling the market. So it's very difficult, sometimes gets very difficult for us to promote a quality products which might be at a higher price. But to compete with a product, India is a very price sensitive market, so it becomes sometimes very difficult. So I'm very happy that the ministry will come out with certain specification which might allow good quality products to stay in the market, and the poor quality products can be hyped off, can go out of the market, and this is very important. There is also absence of benchmarks and standards when we started the program, and again, since the standards are now being developed, so it will definitely going to help us in a big way, not only just TERI but the entire market as a whole. We have found one of the most important thing is the quality of service. The quality of product is fine, but at the same time whether the product is giving the due service or not is also very important. I get a product to get a 5 hours of lighting from a product, but it may not give 5 hours of light after say 6 months. This one, it starts deteriorating. So that is something, is an issue which needs to be looked into, and we are trying in our own way trying to address that. Battery technology is still vulnerable, overall by most of the consumers. The consumers in many villages are very smart, so they open the lanterns, connect the battery to music systems and other things. So we need to see how we can address that, and this is again a problem we are trying to address in our own way. But I think the industry has to come forward and devise certain ways to address that. So for that, it's very important that the cost reductions is also very important through innovation, and I feel that the new research and pilots by private sectors can only be possible with enabling policies and mandate by the government. So if there is a certainty that yes, new products will come up, and the government giving certain certainty on the policies front and on the mandate front, then definitely this can be addressed. Finance is a very critical thing. We have been seeing that it's very difficult to raise finance, mostly because the villages which do not have access to electricity are also those where the income level of the households are very poor. So they can't pay the market price. So we need to see how we can have a mix of low cost fund and mix of grant, debt and equity to make these projects happen. It is very important that we have improved and affordable access to capital with flexibility into the entire value chain. What is happening is that the manufacturer might still get finance from the banks, but it's very difficult to set up an after-sales service by the local entrepreneur who do not have access to cheap fund or low-cost fund from the bank. And so you can take the product, you can sell the product, it's fine, but the product doesn't function, and there is no facility to make the product function again. So ultimately the manufacturers also get the blame. So you need a financing in the entire value chain, and if that can happen, then it can make a lot of change into the entire sector. We also have seen that there is an absence of organized and structured delivery model. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but the off-grid solar or off-grid renewable energy systems have been steered by the so-called NGOs. It has not yet been implemented through a very structured, organized approach. I think Lighting a Billion Lives program has steered that model that yes, we can do it in a very organized way, and which can give much better results than what it is being done by in a piecemeal approach by small NGOs. So I think it's very important that we create a structured model to have more effects, to have more impacts in the villages. There is also lack of standard, and again, because it has not been done in a structured way, so there is still standard processes and metrics have not been developed. Now, one of the very key thing for the LED thing, and which I'd like to highlight, Mr. Sangal is also there, he might take note of it, is that while our national electrification policy says that the minimum lifeline electricity consumption should be merit good consumption should be 1 kilowatt hour per household per day. This one. Now 1 kilowatt hour per household per day is fine as far as the metrics for energy is concerned for the grid connected supply. Now if I go to LED, and 1 kilowatt hour is something that the entire household can get so much of light that one can't imagine also with 1 kilowatt hour of energy. So the metrics should have been changed to what we have been trying to say, that maybe time has come with the advent of new technology to say that for lighting we should have a metrics for lumen hour and not kilowatt hour. So something on that line needs to be discussed and worked out, and which might help the LED industry to grow. So that is something that we can give a thought to it. We also have seen that there are a lot of new models which are coming up, which are called build, own, operate, manage, build, own, manage, and all these things. So these new models also need to be promoted as an institutional model to scale up the process. And creating an ecosystem for solar electrification is very important. After sales has been a very key thing for the success or failure of any model. Last mile access for products and spares. The missing link is that while there is an access for product, as a manufacturer you must be selling a product in the villages. You have an access, you have a supply chain machinery which is very active. All these things are happening, but once the product is sold, it is very difficult to take the spares to that village. There is no supply chain mechanism to take the spares, and that creates a lot of problem. We are not a country, we are not like Japan or Germany or other places. In India, I feel everybody buys a product until the product is fully utilized to its last thing. We still try to use it by rectifying it or making changes and this and doing. So I think the inherent nature of the Indians is to have a robust after-sales service. And if it is not developed, then the industry will not grow. So this is something that is very important for the industry to grow as a whole, and which we have been finding it quite difficult to develop. So what we are trying to do now is that we are trying to create enterprises, rural energy enterprises in the villages, at the district level, where the manufacturers can take advantage of these enterprises, and these enterprises, we are training the technicians who can provide the after sales service. So instead of having a high transaction cost for each manufacturer to open up a new enterprise, they can actually take the advantage of the enterprises being developed by TERI under the Lighting a Billion Lives program, and to keep their transaction cost low, and at the same time to provide better service to the community. So what we are doing is creating a local level enterprise that acts as a hub for sale and servicing of clean energy products, and that is something that we are already trying. We have been successful to some extent, but we need support from the industry also to make it more successful. And the last but not the least is the policy, because I strongly feel that the entire dissemination of off-grid lighting products suffers from uncertainty in the political framework condition. You don't know whether the village is electrified, the electricity supply is not reliable. So some investors setting up a LED-based lighting system and start giving the service to the villagers. After 6 months, the electricity supply situation improves, which is good. But then the investor loses his entire money. So no investor tries to come forward to do the operation. everybody is interested to manufacture and supply, but very few investors are interested to operate and provide the service in the villages. We need to change it from manufacture and supply to operation and service. And if that happens, then the ultimate benefit can be derived by the community in the villages, who are our final consumers. There is also cross subsidy in the grid villages, which is not there in case of off-grid villages, which also creates a problem in the tariff parity in the villages, and that is again is creating a problem. So to address all these things, I think there is a huge requirement for a strong political will to consider the off-grid also as a means for mainstream electrification in addition to the grid. Without in competition to each other, it should be complementary to each other, which is not happening right now, and which should happen, which may make the sector more viable, and of course the ultimate benefit will go to the consumers. So an agenda for scaling up. We know the scaling up is a famous scaling up framework by Acumen Fund and others, where we know that the mandate by the government mission, the non-profit organization work on a mission mode, and the for-profit companies work for a margin, that's the profit. And in between there are social enterprises which work for a margin as well as with a mission. I think we work on PPP model, but the need of the hour is that how we can link the social enterprises with the PPP model, where the social enterprises can be supported by the government to provide electricity services or lighting services in the rural area, to develop a pro-poor public-private partnerships which has all the three components of the scale-up, whether it is mission, margin and mode, and some of the instruments which can help this in developing this entire framework could be institution development grant, where you provide grant to the institution, not on the product but to the institution also, to develop the required institutional capacity to produce, to not only to manufacture but also to provide the service, enhance the viability of these small projects using some risk mitigation fund, using subsidy and long-term low-cost capital. The framework could be, which I am trying to work out, is that when we give the subsidy from the MNRE to the rural energy projects, now the subsidy is linked with dissemination. Instead of that, the subsidy could also be linked with dissemination plus investment by a bank. So if the bank is investing a certain amount of money, or the ministry is giving subsidy to make the project viable and by using that subsidy. So it's an equity subsidy and not a debt subsidy. If I can do that, then the equity return for the investor will increase, and then when more and more equity investors will come forward in the sector to have more and more scaled up projects, which will again help the industry, LED industry also to grow, because ultimately they will take the LED. So I think this could be one of the way to scale up the LED lighting projects, at least the LED lighting projects in rural parts of India where there is a huge scope. So any questions you may have, we can have during the panel discussions, and Parmita might like to share something about the solar lab that we have, where we are doing a lot of testing of products and applications.